Hey guys, Paul here. Welcome to Race Department stream. We're taking the bonus pack 3 from Assetto Corsa around the wonderful, the lovely, the beautiful laser scan Laguna Seca. With me today I've got a very special guest, Kunos physics expert, Aris. Aris, say hello.
Hello everybody, thank you for inviting me.
And what we're going to do is we're going to take the 7 cars that come as part of the bonus pack for a few laps. Aris may get a little bit sideways intentionally. I may get a little bit sideways because I'm rubbish. We're going to have a bit of fun. We're going to talk about the bonus pack, talk about the cars, do a little bit of physics, answer a few of your questions that you posed both on the comments at Race Department and on the Twitch stream as well. So feel free to post a few comments and we'll pick those up. And yeah, we'll have a bit of fun. Aris, before we get on to the circuit, can you tell us a little bit about the bonus pack? When are we going to see it? What's involved in it? Because the car names all sound a lot cooler when you say it.
All right, yeah, thanks, Paul. Well, first of all, let me thank you personally and also Race Department for hosting this live stream. And as you said, we are releasing in 2 days, 20th of December, this bonus pack 3 for Assetto Corsa. And it features 7 cars. It is the Maserati Quattroporte Gts, the Maserati Alfieri, which is a concept car, the Pagani Huayra BC. Then we have the Lamborghini Sesto Elemento and the Lamborghini Huracan Performante. And then we have the Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio and finally the Alfa Romeo Tipo 33 Stradale. And we're also releasing Laguna Seca laser scanned, and all of this stuff is free of charge, and it is our thank you to all the users that they have supported Assetto Corsa for this so long time. We know we are a little bit late with the Laguna Seca, but hey, we're offering it for free finally. So this is it.
Cool, thank you. Before we get started, I've seen a few comments already at RD asking about what the future is going to be like, what the next game is, when you're developing it. So just to clarify for everybody, this is a stream about Assetto Corsa as it is today. It's about the bonus pack and the cars. So we're not really going to steer into that territory because it's not appropriate. And as Aris will no doubt probably say himself, it's not the right person we're talking to that has that insider knowledge. So it's not something we're going to drift into today, so to speak.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for pointing this out. As I said also in a comment in Race Department post, the thing is that I'm not responsible for that stuff. I'm not responsible for the decisions that be made for Assetto Corsa Future or for whatever title will come in the future. So this tonight's stream is about the bonus pack 3. This is something that I can reply to questions about. And it's good to say right from the start that if people start questioning about the future, I would simply don't know what to say. So it's better to lower a little bit the expectations and just have fun with what we have right here, right now.
And on that front, shall we get off? Let's go.
All
What
right.
car are we taking out? Because you say it's so much cooler than I do. I'm not even going there. What are we driving?
Okay, so we're driving the Maserati Quattroporte GTS, which is, let me go in the truck. All right. The Maserati Quattroporte GTS is a big sedan. It's a limo, as they say. And it's big, it's heavy, about 2,000 kilograms to 2 tons. It has a surprisingly small engine for the top, because this is obviously the fastest version of the car. It's a 3.8 liter, but it is B-turbo, V8, and it has around 530 horsepower and around 700 Newton meters of torque. Well, what to say about this car? It is surprisingly, it has a surprisingly good turn-in, actually, for the size and for the weight of the car. But obviously, you can't expect it to be very fast. And especially if you go too fast into the turn, it will just plow and go into some understeer in the mid-turn. If you go well enough in the initial turn-in, and then you stay on the throttle, ignoring a little bit the initial understeer, it will finally turn around and start drifting, because it is rear-wheel drive. Something that we will try to do here in this track. Well, actually, this is something, yeah, that the guys will see pretty much often here in this Laguna Seca track. If you miss by just a little bit the turn-in, almost in every turn of Laguna Seca, you're gonna have big issues making the apex, because the camber of the turn is so straight that if you miss it just by a little bit, you're really going wide, and there is no way to, you know, turn back again and have some fun.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenging. It's a challenging track. It surprised me. I've driven Laguna, not many a time in different games and sims and whatnot, and this obviously laser scanned.
Yes.
It's a more complex track than it maybe appears at first glance.
Yes, the turns. I mean, obviously, yes, you have the corkscrew, which is famous, but all the other turns seem normal. But in reality, the camber of the turn, so how the actual asphalt is inclined towards the inside of the turn, is so strange and complex that you miss a little bit the turn-in, and it is big trouble. Big trouble.
Sort of talking about the laser scan side of things.
Yeah.
I noticed, I mean, we'll get onto the questions later on, but I noticed somebody posed an interesting question. How exactly did you go about scanning the circuit? Did you attend in person as Kunos, or were they a scanning company through drone or traditional van around the track? Nice slide as well.
This side, thanks. Well, this time we didn't actually went there ourselves, but we managed to take advantage of a great scan company that did actually the whole work for us. The good thing with the laser scan is that it doesn't only give you the 3D cloud, point cloud, but also gives you photos and videos 360 degrees, so you get extra information about that. And obviously we did extra photos, and I hope the result will be good enough for people and they will like it and enjoy it.
So as well as the actual track itself, the surrounding scenery and the pit buildings and everything's all true to life?
Yes, absolutely.
Have you ever been on Laguna yourself in real life?
Unfortunately, no. It's one of the things that I miss, and I really hope in the future to be able to visit this track, because it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I've grown up with Laguna through obviously the Forza, Gran Turismo series, and watching kart racing back in the day when Zanardi took to it in the Ganassi.
Yeah, you know, Italians are very. They have actually a relationship of love and hate with Valentino Rossi, which is multi-champion in MotoGP. And MotoGP actually has had some amazing. Whoops, overshoot it. Way too much drift, way too much angle. So yeah, MotoGP had some great races here at Laguna Seca. So we know this track mostly from the races of MotoGP, and we really love it. It's so strange. The scenery is so different from other tracks. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful track. But back onto the car itself. Obviously, you're the chap that's responsible for the physics at Kunos, and on these cars. What sort of data and cooperation have you had from the manufacturer to bring what is a relatively new car on the market into the game?
Well, luckily, and usually, if it is something, um, if it is for a street car, manufacturers are pretty collaborative. Obviously, there is some that is more collaborative than others, but usually for street cars, you don't have big troubles. So, especially for because they give us the actual IGES and CAD files, we just have to ask them a little bit more data, and they will provide also the suspension in CAD files, which means that this is really helpful for my work, so I can start working and getting the exact suspension geometry, which is a very big part of how a car feels. And then, you know, the rest of it is pretty much easy to find. They give us the data, but it is also easy to find information such as, you know, weight or horsepower and stuff like that.
So, I mean, we spoke the other night, and we got into a long conversation about physics.
Yeah.
And is there to go back on that conversation a little bit, is there a specific area of data when creating physics that's sort of like the golden ticket that makes the cars handle as they do? Or is it a combination of many small parts to make the whole?
Well, yeah, if you ask me this kind of question about, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, because yeah, I'm that old in the scene, I would have said that the tires do 90% of the physics. But if you ask me right now, I would tell you that the tires are 90% of the physics, and the rest of the data is the other 90% of the physics.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really is. I mean, with experience, you start to understand that yes, tires are very important, but to get the actual character of a car, you really need to focus and try to recreate all the little details from suspension geometry, spring rates, dampers, aerodynamics, inertia, very important, differentials. Everything is really, really important to get out of the car the actual character, the actual handling characteristics, that they are subtle, but they also create the differences between one car and another. Even if the cars are very similar, you know that all drive differently, right? And
Yeah.
it's those little characteristics that made, whoops, too much, right? Yeah, ow, no, ow.
Ho, ho, ho.
No, I didn't make it. So yes, that's the whole thing about it. You need to pay attention. You need to find all the data possible, and then for the ones that you miss, you need to try to read very carefully all the testing of the car from magazines, from videos, from other drivers that they may have drive it, or if possible, try it yourself and try to understand what is that makes this car different from others, for example.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting point, because obviously AC has a large variety of different cars, race cars, road, open wheel, things like that. Have you got any a preference from your point of view, sort of satisfaction, both in doing and the outcome? Any particular kind of car that you most enjoy working on?
Ah, that's a very, very hard question. Because you know, when you work on so many cars, and to be honest, we never thought initially that we would arrive at a point to do, I don't know, 150 cars now. I don't even remember the exact number, but there are plenty. So when you're doing so many cars, you start to have no heroes anymore, you know? When I was a little kid, I had my preferences and I had my hero cars, and I liked them so hard, I was almost fanatic about them. But right now, I'm not fanatic anymore about cars, and I really appreciate each car, even those that have actually wired handling characteristics. I really
Yeah.
appreciate them for the engineering work behind them. And so if I had to choose one, I would say it is impossible, but maybe we can choose depending on at least, you know, the if it's a race car or if it is a street car or if it is a vintage car, stuff like that. Um, then again, I will have to choose, for example, the hybrids are amazing. I'm not so good
Oh, that's
driving
an
in them.
interesting call. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not so good driving those cars, but they are really amazing in terms of technology, and I would never have thought that we would arrive at a point that we could simulate them so well with all those different characteristics. But
Right.
then,
Talk. Oh,
yeah,
go on.
sorry.
Go on. Carry on. Carry on.
Then again, we have now modern street cars that are even more technological than race cars, because modern race cars are very limited in terms of regulations, that they tend to be much more analogical, right? While modern street cars, especially hypercars, are extremely technological and complex, and it is a fantastic challenge to recreate them as good as possible to the real ones.
Well, talking about variety of the spice of life, shall
Yeah,
we have a go in something else?
absolutely.
Giving this one a little run.
Let me go into the pits because I hate stopping in the middle of the track and hitting gas. I'm an
Oh,
old
a
guy.
man after my own heart. I do like that. I'm almost there myself, so I shall be with you.
Good. All right.
Man, you forget how awkward that pit entry is.
Yeah, very. Okay, I'm getting out from the server, and I'll get the. What do you say? Should we try the Maserati Alfieri?
Yeah, that sounds good. And for those of you on the stream that are not sure which car that is, probably not heard of it before, it's a concept car, I believe.
Yes, exactly.
So that's a bit new for AC. Concept cars. What's the story behind that?
Well, it's gorgeous to
Yes,
start with.
very true.
Yeah. So when we approached Maserati to get the actual Maserati Grand Sport GT4 car, they also proposed a couple of extra cars to do, and one of them was the Alfieri. And after looking, sorry, the actual car concept was really very nice, and we thought, yeah, why not? And I believe people will see now the cockpit and how it works, and they will be they will be quite
That is weird.
amused. Yeah.
That is weird. That takes. I'm using a screen at the moment for this stream, but doing that in VR, that's confusing.
Yeah, it's a little bit strange to say the least. Very avant-garde or something like that.
It's very eye-catching, certainly.
Yeah.
But yeah, concept car then. So this one is something that was designed by Maserati themselves. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. Completely their design team in-house, I believe. And
so how does one go about getting the specs and the stats, the numbers and the figures to put this into a game then? Is there an element of interpretation involved, or is this another typical get a data sheet from them and then build to spec?
Well, that was actually a little bit of strange situation with this car, because when they gave us the car, I was waiting for the data, and in the meantime I was starting to read about the car, and there were actually many variations of this car.
Okay.
And the concept car was based on the Gran Turismo coupe street car. There were talks about another when the car would actually go into production, it should be something with a turbo engine and all-wheel drive system. And then there was also another variation with a complete electric engine. So I will start to working on the all-wheel drive system and the actual turbo engine. And at some point I started talking with the Maserati guys, and they asked me to recreate the actual concept car, which is based on the Gran Turismo engine and chassis. So in the end we have a V8 normal aspirated 560 horsepower and a little bit less weight. Wait for me, I'm coming. And it is rear wheel drive. So in the end I think it's a much more fun car to drive like this. It can be a great car to put against, for example, I don't know, the Corvette T7. So yeah, I think in the end maybe it's better this way.
Aris, where are you?
Yeah, I'm here. Right behind you.
Cool.
So
yes, it's an interesting car to drive. I'm not normally taken by this kind of car, but I found it one of the most engaging experiences out of the whole pack. It's a beautiful car to drive. How do you feel about it in terms of what it's taken to bring it into the game, and is it something you enjoy taking a ride back at the office?
Well, it was pretty surprising for me too, but considering, here I am, just behind you.
Overtake, sir.
Alright. But considering the fact that it is based on the Gran Turismo car, which is, yes, the street car is a little bit Gran Touring car, right? It's not so sporty, but you can feel that the chassis has lots of potential, especially if you drive the actual GT4 car inside the Assetto Corsa.
Yeah,
which, if I remember well, people really like it and believe it's one of the best cars, you know, to do single maker races, right?
Yeah, we find the GT4, GT5 spec cars, it tends to promote close racing because you're not always on the absolute edge. He says as he's locking up the braking, trying to keep it on circuit. And this one, to me, feels more like a race car than it does a road car. There's a lot of grip to be had once the initial sort of movement calms down. The car settles on the suspension a little bit more.
Exactly, because it is actually a improved version of the street Gran Turismo. It is shorter, it has a shorter wheelbase, so it is more agile. It has a little bit lower gravity center, so it has more grip, less weight transfer, and some improvements into the suspension also make it you know, more neutral in the handling, interesting to throw around, and you can drive it as you wish. I mean, you can go for lap time and it will follow without big problems. It's a very nice car, good turn in, good mid-turn and good exit traction. Or you can drift it, you know, and it will do practically anything.
Have you found then that the Maserati guys have been quite excited to see something that's on a design sheet back at the office in a virtual environment? Have you had good engagement from them?
Well, actually I have a very good friend at Maserati that I have worked with him also before Kuno Simulazioni, before joining Kuno Simulazioni as a professional. And he's a great sim racer and he really enjoys trying cars in you know, sims. And for him now being able to try those cars finally into a sim, it is a big deal because, you know, not other sims have Maserati in their actual car line. Yes,
I bet that's a moment of pride. Actually, I can imagine that being quite a satisfying feeling to see people racing these cars and enjoying them, but without the 300,000–400,000 euro price tag attached to buying one.
Yeah. Well, actually, you know, I think we were talking about this the other day, and I think that a big part of sim racers are missing something. I mean, it's always lots of talk about which sim is best, or which car is the fastest, or what lap times you're doing, or what kind of finish position you got on that race or on whichever race. But one of the things that you can do with modern simulators, not only Assetto Corsa of course, but especially in Assetto Corsa as we have so many street cars, is that you can actually feel the handling of many various cars. And I think this is something amazing nowadays. You couldn't do this some years ago with sims, because you had a couple of race cars and that was it. While right now we have sims that have plenty of cars, and you can really feel the differences between, you know, each car. I think it's the golden age of simulation, really.
Actually, I could not agree with you more on that one. And you were right, we were talking about this the other day, and we kind of got onto the correlation between real life and the simulation, and some of your experiences driving a selection of cars that you find in AC. Where do you think it is? Where do you think sim racing is now in terms of how well real life is recreated in the software?
That's a very interesting question. It's really difficult to quantify. What's the correct word?
Quantify.
Quantify that. Because it depends on various. I mean, it depends on how you measure the thing. Do we have to measure the thing in terms of how close we get to a telemetry lap or the final lap time? I would say modern sims are close to 80, 85, 90% maybe, depending on the car. They are really very close, and I'm very austere, let's say, to these kind of numbers. If we say how each simulator defines the character of its car, I think on occasion we are even closer. Because one of the things that always surprises me, and it's one of the things that, you know, makes me love my my work, right? It's the fact that you can read something on a magazine or maybe on a YouTube channel about how a car handles, right? You can also overtake me, guys. I
think we're all playing hold back.
And so you can read something about the car, right? And then you get the data, you put it on the sim, and you don't have to do anything strange, and you can instantly recognize the characteristic of the car inside the sim. Driving in front of a monitor, you know, with some even plasticky pedals, not even professional ones, and whatever wheel you have, and you can recognize the characteristic of the real car. And I think this is amazing if you think about it, right? The technology and the software complexity nowadays, if you just sit behind for a minute and think about it, it really is amazing. Now, if you talk about validation situation, which means, you know, get the actual car and measure the telemetry, go as close as possible. Also, in terms of, okay, if I try a different setup in the sim, will it be the same? Where are you going, Paul?
That's my attempt at drifting. Yeah.
All right. Waiting for you. So I was saying, in terms of validation, let's get a simulated car.
Thank you.
And change the setup and expect it to have the exact same behavior in reality. This gets a little bit more or difficult, obviously. I won't be able to quantify how much close we are. I wouldn't be surprised on occasion to be more than 70%, but it's just numbers. I mean, who knows? And most importantly, I'm pretty sure not even the professional know for sure, because there
Yeah,
are
of course.
plenty of variations that we simply don't know.
I mean, you told me.
Aerodynamics are strange, tires are completely strange. Who knows, right?
Well, you told me that nice story about the Lamborghini drive
Yeah.
and the drifting one. I think that were quite a telling example of where we've come now with
Yes.
Sims and Assetto Corsa in comparison to the real world. That opened my eyes a little bit from someone who's done both, who's driven the real and driven the virtual, so sort of where similarities lie.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Well, I don't know if people know, but I have a YouTube channel called Game and Track, and it's a channel that we are keeping forward. We are putting content in there together with a friend of mine, Maurizio Spinali, which is a automotive journalist. And it is a good thing to have friends like him, because he can obtain many cars, many also hypercars, to real hypercars to play with. And so,
I could do with the front light. That'd be useful.
I believe in that.
Somebody's got a Mark 1 Golf I could use, but that's not quite the same.
So one of the cars that we had the fortune to try was the Lamborghini Aventador Super Veloce. So I got to try the car, and you know, it is a car that it is, you know, mid-engine, big rear engine, plenty of tire width, plenty of power, 750 horsepower. It is a dinosaur of a supercar, you know. And so obviously you approach such a car with a little bit of fear. And obviously the last thing that passes your mind is, yeah, whatever, I will drift the heck out of it, right?
Oh yes.
But the thing is that while I was driving the car, I had already simulated the car in Assetto Corsa. I was developing the car, so I had already put the actual data of the car and was driving the car into Assetto Corsa, and I had some muscle memory of what the actual simulated car was doing, right, in different situations.
Yeah.
And when I was starting to try the car, the real car, I found out myself doing the very similar, I won't say exact, but very similar movements with my hands and my feet to control the car in various situations, very much alike to the actual simulated one. And so because of that, at some point I said to myself, you know what, I should try and drift it exactly as I did on the simulator. And you can see the results on the video on YouTube, which were actually quite amazing for me too. But the thing about it is that because I don't have all that real driving experience, I'm not a professional driver. So it's not like every weekend I'm driving something very fast. My experience is much higher from the Sims, right? So all my muscle memory works and my visual experience works from what I see in the Sims. And strangely enough, this brings me to a situation that I can try the same things into a real car. And I am not judging the handling of the car based on my bum feeling, right, as they say. So for example, yeah, professional drivers might have difficulties to go way over the limit and drift a car because they feel different things from the G-forces. while to go fast on my situations, I try not to. I try to ignore the G-forces and go by visual and by things on my hands. And this makes me, I don't know, it gives me more confidence to do things over the limit. I might not be as fast as them close to the limit, but it gives me more confidence to do drift things with the cars. And yeah, I think this is an indication of how realistic the actual simulators have become lately.
Well, shall we finish this lap and switch over to something else after this now? Let's have a go in another one. What we're doing next, Aris? What's the car of choice?
We could either try the Lamborghini Sesto Elemento or the Pagani Huayra BC. Your call.
Let's go for the Pagani.
All right.
Both Lamborghinis are crazy pieces of kit.
Yes.
I've had a go in those prior to coming on here, and yeah, they've got some performance. I've got to admit, I do like this. I really thought this car would be the one that I look at, think, oh, that's nice, and then never ever use again.
Yeah.
But it's very much one of my favourites.
Yeah, it is very neutral. It's delightful handling, I'd say. It's also forgiving. You can push it. You can try to go faster, and it will just, you know, do the things in a very linear way, very predictable.
Yeah, very much so. Right, so we are going for the Pagani.
All right.
Told you, it sounds a lot cooler when you say it. The Pagani! And I just come out of the way, let's go for Pagani. This also is a very visually spectacular car.
Well, yeah, the Pagani really is something.
I mean, it's beautiful externally, the shapes, the lines and everything, but also in the cockpit. I think it's fair to say, especially people who use VR, very much Assetto Corsa is a go-to game for that. The detail that you guys put into the modelling of the interior of all the cars, pretty much, is spectacular. And this one, a few people will notice, and I shall plant no seeds of doubt in your mind. Some of the cockpits in this pack, although created perfectly nice, are bizarre.
Yes, that's true.
I'm less keen on some than I am others, but this one, she looks beautiful. Absolutely beautiful, this one.
Yeah, well, I have to say, obviously, bring the compliments to our 3D lead artists and the guys that work to create all these wonderful cockpits.
Yeah, indeed, it's spectacular.
Yeah, but I remember one thing about which not about the Pagani Huayra BC, but the original Pagani Huayra. I remember we were creating the Pagani, and the first Oculus came out, the first version.
Yeah.
And I remember being into our offices at Vallelunga, and everybody was like, "You have to try the Pagani with the new VR. You have to try the Pagani." And everybody was like, you know, wearing the Oculus, trying to look around. It was so detailed, and it would look so much life-alike, you know, completely real 3D.
Oh, it's just incredible. I mean, I get a lot of my fun purely from just sitting in the car looking round at the detail. It's absolutely, it's mind-blowing. I'm struggling greatly going back to a screen at the moment, to be honest, to do this stream. But right, should we go?
Yep. So Gergo is using now the old Pagani, and you will see probably how much faster the BC is.
And this one has got a lovely, lovely sound from the engine as well.
Watch out on your braking zone, because this thing really flies in the straights.
Also, though, this has got a very positive turning.
Yep. You will probably, once the tires are a bit more hot, you will experience some mid-turn understeer on this car, more than the original Pagani, so to say. This is because they have opted for more downforce at the rear of the car, and to be honest, I can't blame them because the car is lighter than the original Pagani, has a little bit more, a little bit more horsepower too. So it's really very fast. So what you need with a car like that is traction out from the turns, and it doesn't have any strange electronic active suspension stuff. It only gains a new active differential.
Okay, and that's all fully simulated?
Yes, as usual. The differential will take inputs from the telemetry, specifically from the slip angles and slip ratios of the tires, from the yaw angle and the G-forces, the steering movement, stuff like that, and will lock more or less depending on what's happening on what is reading from these telemetry channels.
And how difficult is that for you guys to simulate in AC?
Well, the system that Stefano made is pretty straightforward. It's not that difficult. The main issue is to understand what the actual car manufacturer do, because it is one of those things that they usually want to, keep secret.
Yes, I can imagine.
And if they do not keep secret, they give you the data. And here's the thing: in a real car, you cannot understand. You do not have an exact read of what the actual slip ratio or slip angle of the tires is. It's something that you cannot know. So you have to use the ABS sensors and the speed sensors to have a look on the speeds and the rotation speeds of its wheel, and then use some logic to understand what is happening, if a tire is slipping or not. Then you have to use the yaw sensors to understand if the car is drifting or sliding or is understeering, stuff like that. And from all of that, you have to do lots of software code to try to understand what is happening and change the whatever active system you have accordingly. Luckily, into the sim, the problem with all of this is that it takes lots and lots of lines of code to understand what is going on, and it takes lots of logic to extract the data that you need. And that's why it's very difficult for the manufacturers to control well all this kind of stuff and make it also good to drive. I mean, the system has to be invisible to the driver, so that the driver thinks that the car is very linear and predictable, but doesn't really understands what the electronics do underneath it.
Actually, that's a really interesting point, because driving this now, despite all the modern tech that's in it and all the things you've just mentioned, it does feel like a very traditional mechanical car.
Yeah.
Very much a case of wheel, tyres, chassis, away you go sort of thing. And that's actually quite an impressive achievement when you think about it. Whoa.
Yep. Yes, exactly. What we do in Assetto Corsa is that we're cheating. But we're cheating not in terms of simulation, but in terms of the end result. Because it is a simulation, we know exactly what the slip angles and the slip ratios of the tires are. We know exactly the yaw angles and if the car is going to understeer or oversteer. So we don't really need all these thousands of code lines to find out what is happening. We already know. So what we have to simulate in the end is like, we already have the solution. Actually, not the solution, but the results of the various sensors. And then we have to tune the system to do the similar things that the actual real car does when the same things are happening.
So how long then does it take on average for you to do physics sets for a car of this kind?
Well, this depends very much on the actual car, because if it is an analog car and I have plenty of data, my work is much easier. So I can maybe take 2 or 3 weeks to finish it, and without even working totally and exclusively on this car, but going back and forth.
Wow, okay, that's good.
If instead it is a car with plenty of active systems, and maybe we don't have the data for everything, this gets really hard, because with many active systems, you change a tiny thing on one of them, and then you need to recalibrate all of the other ones to work well with each other. And this is something that can take maybe more than a month, going back and forth with other cars, but still, you know, coming back to this car, control, verify, work again, verify again the lap time, verify the telemetry, find out what is happening, and stuff like that. Whoa, I'm going wide.
So, what would you say on average? I mean, I know this is a very subjective question, but on average, what's the split between numbers that you're plugging into the engine to give you an end result and feel, driver feedback, personal experience, and tweaking to get that sweet spot in handling?
Well, first of all, let me explain how I do it, right? So when I get the data from the manufacturer, everything I have from the manufacturer and I know that it is official and correct, I will put it into the simulator and will never touch it again. It's the first thing that enters, and then never to be touched during the development of the car. What I miss in terms of data, sorry, but it's not so easy to talk and drive this monster. Damn it, it's fast, really fast. Look, Gergo, it's going straight. Hello, Gergo, how you doing? So I was saying, whatever data I don't have, I will try to get a telemetry or try the car myself, or find a very good fast lap time, you know, YouTube, or maybe a video from the manufacturer. I will take the telemetry data, the speeds inside each turn, the braking points, all that stuff, and then I will start to tweak only the data that I do not know from the official manufacturer input.
Yeah.
This is what I'm tweaking, and I will tweak, obviously not without. I mean, I'm not tweaking randomly, but I will. Luckily, we have also plenty of cars, and I will try to see what other manufacturers do. And you can also always find a pattern. You know, there's always something typical that the one manufacturer will do, and another one will do something close enough to approach the same situation. And I will try to see if it works. Sorry?
So, talking about an interesting point, and obviously I'm sure you can't name names, have you ever had a manufacturer or a team or a racing outfit or whatever come to you trying to garner information about how certain manufacturers do things with a view to changing their real-world cars?
Well, luckily, no, and it is very interesting because, you know, I'm always in a little bit of a strange situation where, you know, manufacturers will not give you all the data they have, especially for race cars. So what you do next is trying to approach and make friends, engineers inside their, you know, their engineering offices and headquarters. And luckily enough, you find plenty of people willing to help because they like simulators, and you get extra data from them. And it is very strange, something that always how to say, surprised me, that nobody asked me, hey, how they do the same thing over a Ferrari or a Porsche. Nobody. They trusted me with the data. Yes. trusted me with their data, and they never asked what other people do. I don't know if they didn't ask because simply they can probably open a certain course and look around, but we also try to not put the exact numbers to the millimeter inside.
Yeah.
We'll always change a little bit because in the end they are sensitive data, and it's not a good thing to, you know, have everything exactly as they give it to you, because it can be, you know, a security breach on some cars.
Right, so let's move on to
All right.
another car. Next lap, I've been whispered in the ear.
Well, since we're going to the pits, just to tell you that yes, when you get the data and you put it in, it is surprisingly close to the real car already.
Yeah.
So you just have to tweak the details, except from some very, very complex cars that, you know, you have problems dealing with, and you have to work really, really hard to understand what they're doing. 918. Nothing. Stuff like that.
While we're circulating back to the pits, talking while braking for corkscrew, that's never clever. Is there any car that you've not got in the sim yet that you would absolutely love to bring to Assetto Corsa?
Oh.
Well, how long have we got?
I really like vintage cars.
Oh, bless you, so do I.
And I would love to have some, you know, touring cars from the 60s and 70s mainly. 70s, when there were the first slick tires used. Some of those cars were really, really amazing, like, I don't know, the BMW CSR, the Capri 3100, stuff like that.
Oh, man.
Fantastic. And the other cars that I really love are the Prototype C era cars. I really love them.
Oh, that's an interesting choice.
Yeah.
You see, right, what we're picking next, mate? What we're next up in, Harris?
Okay, next one. I think we can start with the first Lamborghini. Let's try the Sesto Elemento.
Oh, God. Right.
It's gonna be always harder and harder.
You guys watching on the stream, you know full well that we're leaving the 33 till last. I'm sorry. So this Sesto Elemento, this is a challenging car.
Yes.
To say the least.
Yes.
Got a bit of a unique cockpit compared to Lamborghinis of days gone by. Not everybody's tastes. Bit different though. Not seen it on a Lamborghini before. What's the deal with that?
Well, they named the car after the Sesto Elemento in Italian means the sixth element, and they named the car like that because it is based. The whole car is made of carbon, and some of the parts are also made from a mix of carbon and another alloy, probably magnesium. I don't remember right now. Excuse me about that. I'm sure people will kill me after that. But anyway. But the main thing is that this car, which is this car that is based on the Lamborghini Gallardo, which the Lamborghini Gallardo Superleggera is still around 1,500 kilos, and this car weighs just about actually less than 1,000 kilos. It's 999, something like that. It's really extremely light. It still has 570 horsepower, which means it is very, very fast in acceleration. But it's not an easy car. It's a little bit of a tricky car because it really is a concept car, and being a concept car, it's a little bit too low for its own good, and has a little bit too short of suspension rates, travel rates, and I'm sure people will see how it bounces on some curves,
yes,
especially at the rear, and this can make it really, really unstable on occasion. And then the actual all-wheel drive system is whoops, yeah, see how it's I didn't want to drift right now. It's just the rear end just stepped out from me.
Did you say this is all-wheel drive?
It's all-wheel drive, yes. And
wow, you would never know.
Sometimes it's understeer, sometimes it's oversteer. It's a little bit strange.
And to highlight the point perfectly, I've just pirouetted and I'm now digging sandcastles.
Alright, I'll wait for you at
Thanks,
the
man.
start
Yeah,
finish line.
This is a car that absolutely takes all the concentration.
Yeah, yeah. Especially on bumpy tracks with fast turns, it can get really nervous. Actually, there is the Top Gear lap of the old Top Gear when they had the at BBC, right? And the stick managed to have a great spin. It took the bump, the car started to... It's very evident and clear in the video. You can see the car going flat out on that turn with the tires, if you remember.
Yeah.
And it hits the internal curb, and the rear start bouncing. It wouldn't take a set. And in the end, he didn't manage to keep it, and the car just spun out to the grass.
Well, I realised why I'm having a bad time of it. My brake pedal stopped working.
Oh,
hey,
fantastic.
technology! So
well,
I'll be sitting in the pits and let you guys drive.
Right.
Oh, that's most frustrating. Never mind. I thought it felt a little bit harder than in practice. I'll use this opportunity, if I may, while I'm at pits, to field a few questions that we've had submitted.
I'll try to keep with Gergo, actually. Damn. He wants me to lead. That would be terrible. Whoops.
So guys, listen on the stream. Any questions, throw them in. Stream chat, please. We'll do our best to work our way through them. I'm going to start with a couple, though, that we've got on the RD article that we did advertising this event. From Chris, 2JZ. I wonder if the ALA system is functional in-game. So, first, what's an ALA system? Second, do you have it?
Alright, well, I'm not sure if you want to talk about it right now or after when we do the Lambo Performante, the Huracan Performante, because this is a system, it's a world first actually, and a patented system from Lamborghini for their new Huracan Performante. But
okay, we'll save it when we get to that one then, Sylvia. It'll be a relevant one if you like.
Alright. Oh, understeer, oversteer, oversteer, understeer. Fantastic.
Okay, from Brainsbush.
Yep.
Aris, first of all, thanks for the tutorial videos, hint hint, and obviously your physics work. Do you test drive the real cars yourself before and or after you've inserted the mathematical physics and numbers into the cars in AC? So basically, do you have an opportunity to drive the real world equivalent to the ones that we have in the game?
Yes.
Or the sim, should I say.
Luckily, obviously not all of them, unfortunately. I would love to, but...
That would be the coolest job in the world.
Yeah, but I'm a very lucky person, and I get to drive really many cars. And when I'm saying many cars, we're talking about supercars and hypercars. And yeah, that's a big luck. I'm really grateful to be able to do such a work. The development starts usually before driving the car. Sometimes I get to drive the car before releasing it. Sometimes I get to drive the car after releasing it. But the good thing with software like Assetto Corsa is that we don't mind to update even older cars if we think something can be improved, and it is something that we often do. So we have I had the luck to drive a car, and I see that it is a little bit different or has some characteristics that I wasn't aware of when developing the car for the sim. I will go back and change stuff for it.
Funnily enough, that's a question I was going to ask you. Have you ever had any experiences where you've driven the real thing and thought, oh yeah, something needs to change in sim, and you've gone back and made a substantial change? So that's interesting, you should say that. Okay, firing on to the next question. looking back at the release of the first Elise, Magione Tech demo, is the most what's the most surprising or unsuspected development that Assetto Corsa has made through the years?
Sorry, could you repeat that? What's the most...
When you first brought the game out, it was single car, single track.
Yeah.
What's the thing that surprised you or that you least expected since that time through to sort of the mammoth game that you've got now?
All right. Oh yeah. Okay. Oh well, content first of all. I mean, that would sound a little bit lack of modesty, but it is a fact, and I'm extremely proud, me and all the colleagues at Consumazioni, to be able to have, you know, the first Nürburgring laser scan, and then the first Ferrari cars, and then the first again Porsche cars, so many of them. Those were moments that really never in my most wildest dreams I would have expect to, you know, to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there really were highlights of my career, and I think also highlights of the general sim racing genre, because, you know, having actually the Nordschleife laser scan was a big deal. Having Ferrari into a sim was a big deal. Having Porsche after what, 16 years maybe of exclusivity was a really big deal.
Yeah, they are big highlights, I must admit.
Yeah.
Another question from Glarung. Sorry, mate, if I spelt that wrong, if I've pronounced that wrong. Which is the car whose physics is built with the greatest number of technical data provided by the manufacturer and/or racing team?
Or racing team, right? Well, that's interesting, yeah, because probably you will never believe it, and it wasn't directly from the manufacturer, but I think probably the Ferrari 458 GT2 car.
Wow, really?
Yes, had the most data available. That and the two cars from Glickenhaus. Glickenhaus was extremely collaborative with us. Extremely collaborative.
Is that something, just touching on that for a moment, because you've got those two cars and you've got the Praga R1, R4?
Yes.
I can't remember. Is that something you actively did? You went out to get the smaller or the lesser known manufacturers in to sit alongside big names like Lamborghini, Porsche, Ferrari, McLaren?
Well, obviously you have much better luck to, you know, begin some kind of collaboration with smaller manufacturers.
Yeah.
Ferrari won't let you have their cars so easily, but luckily for us, we also working professionally with Ferrari on other projects, and so there were far more collaborative. This is all thanks, obviously, to Marco Massaruto, who is dealing with all those guys every day. And but yeah, when you, for example, Lotus Cars was one of the car manufacturers that was very collaborative since the start, so to say. They also invited us at the Hethel. Well.
Oh, cool. Okay.
They also invited us at Hethel at their test track, and I will also never forget that they gave us two of their back then prototypes cars to thrash around their test track.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I will never forget drifting with the actual Evora GTA and the Exis V6, which was not a production car by the day when we visited their headquarters. So it was really a special day.
Okay, next car, if I can, please, Aris.
Yeah.
Also, request Dave, one of the guys in chat wonders if we can turn the volume up for Aris a little bit, please.
Sure.
Thank you. Right, another question. Let's have a look. Aris, what is your favourite Kunos car and your favourite mod car? That's a good question. And that's, again, same question from Giuseppe.
Yeah, well, the favorite car is difficult to say. I think we talked about it before, because it depends on so many factors. Lately, I tend to watch car not in terms of which one I like to drive most, but comparing the different characteristics and the engineering behind them from one car to the other. But if I had to choose one, you say? No, it's impossible to choose one. Yeah, it's really impossible to choose one. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. It's very difficult. In terms of mod cars, unfortunately, I don't have the time to try all the mod cars. So if I had to choose one, I would obviously do. It would be not fair for the ones that I haven't tried.
Fair point, fair point.
Yeah. But what I would say that I have occasionally tried a couple of cars here and there is some amazing talent out there from the modders. They create exceptional stuff. I'm really interested when they release something new. I'd like to see it, to watch it, and look how they did it. And some of them are really amazing. And it is actually one of the reasons that some of them, when we manage to get a deal for the license, we bring it in and release it as actual official car.
Does it actually make you proud to see how the mod community's grown and all these people using your software are dedicating so much time and effort and energy into creating content for basically for no cost for the community? It blows me away sometimes.
Absolutely, because in the end, many of the guys that are Kunos core people, they have done modding before becoming professionals. Myself too, and so we know what it is, what it takes to search into the files, trying to understand, because obviously you don't have all the information needed, trying then to research an actual car or an actual track, waste far too many nights trying to make it as good as possible, release it out there, having to deal with the criticism of the people. Some of them is constructive, some of them is not. So we know exactly what it means. And for us, it's really important that those guys are, choosing Assetto Corsa to create that content. And it is one of the reasons that Stefano tries really hard to make modding, I won't say easy, but accessible.
Yeah, I think that's been an important thing.
Yes, because modding is never easy. It is very hard indeed. But at least we try. We don't always succeed, but we try to make it accessible, so that people can at least understand and make changes easily and fast enough. Because another big factor is to be able to make changes fast enough in your physics or in your graphics, so that you can see the results directly into the simulator.
Right. While you guys are getting your next car or going out on track, I'll have a quick look for another one. Spare me a second.
Okay.
I have a question here is, are you in the next car, by the way? Sorry, I don't see it on the...
I'm with the Lamborghini Huracan Performante now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So while you're wrestling that thing round, question from the stream.
Right.
Are you the only physics developer at AC? Or what sort of size team and who else has...
Yes.
the numbers magic?
Yes. Stefano is the actual lead programmer. He does everything, actually.
Don't tell him that. Don't tell him. What a pay rise.
Well, he knows it, so. And he does also the physics end in terms of code. Then my job is to work closely with Stefano, find data, find proof for things that we might not be sure, and exchange opinions with Stefano and see how we can implement different characteristics of the cars, and then after that I gather all the data, test the cars, and try to recreate them as good as possible inside the Assetto Corsa for all the cars that we have inside the Assetto Corsa.
Excellent. Right, another question then. Bear with me a second while I find it. What circuit would you want to bring into AC but have not been able to?
Ooh.
And that's Glen VW. Posted
Ooh.
that one.
Well, out of many, I think Suzuka and Bathurst. Those are two tracks that I would really like to see, and they are very difficult, both because of distance, and because also of licensing requests. So it's difficult. And again, as I said, I'm not the one that I can decide such things.
Yeah,
it's mainly Marco that has to wrestle with the licensing terms. So yeah, but if I could choose one or two, those two would be on top of my wishing list. And probably some American tracks, US tracks, because I really love the fact that they are bumpy and old-fashioned, you know.
Health and safety haven't touched them.
Yeah, and you know, for the simulator, safety is not an issue. So yeah, I really like them because the bumps and make you drive in a different way than you would in modern tracks that are very flat, very smooth.
Another question from the stream. Apologies, by the way, guys. I'm trying to get as many as I can. We've got a few to get through, so if they get missed, my sincere apologies, and we'll do them on the next one. Go-Karts.
Yeah.
We don't have them in the sim. Is that a conscious decision? Is there a reason behind that? Would you ever think about it, or have you ever thought about it in the past?
And we won't have them because go-karts are extremely difficult to simulate properly. I mean, yes, you can simulate a little bit, but simulate them properly, it's not really very easy. And that's because go-karts are not cars, are vehicles, and are very complicated vehicles. Just, for example, look at how go-karts turn, for example. It's not just that they have to usually raise the rear wheel the rear inside wheel to turn, but the steering system is made in a way that the actual wheelbase at the inside part of the turn decreases, and the wheelbase at the outside part increases. And then the most important thing is that they have no suspension, and the actual chassis flex is what helping them steer, and the handling is determined by this chassis flex. And a chassis that is not damped by any dampers has very high frequencies, which easily can create problems to the physics engine, or simply you will have to dump them in a way that it won't be realistic anymore. So it really is a very particular vehicle, difficult to make correctly. You either do a physics engine that does only that maybe, or you have to waste too much time to create something proper for a certain course of time that will probably, you know, is needed for other things than to recreate just one vehicle.
No, makes sense, thank you. Another one that we've got from the chat, which I'm going to expand on a little bit. The actual question was, can we expect electric cars in the future in Assetto Corsa? But to sort of change that question around a little bit, is the physics engine, the way it's set up at the moment, able to simulate electric cars? Would that be a big undertaking for you to make that possible in AC? Because obviously AC kind of came out and were designed at a time before electric racing really was a thing. So is that something you can do, and is it something you would maybe have the appetite to do?
Well, I don't know if in the future we will get a license for an electric car, So that's again depends on Marco plans.
Of course, yeah.
But in terms of how to simulate it, uh, you have two possibilities. First of all, an electric motor is not hard to simulate as it is, and actually any simulator can simulate an electric engine without issues. You just have to create a different torque curve and graph, and you can, use the actual fuel for electric battery. The only thing you have to do is, make the fuel weight 0, and that's it.
Oh, right, okay.
Or if you really want to do something different, you can simulate the actual electric engine in a different way, but in the end, the end result is always the same. We've done in the past new features when we had to simulate a specific car that had, completely new stuff. So if needed, we can do it again. But to be honest, to simulate an electric car, I see no difficulties, really.
Okay, that's interesting to know then. Right. I have another question from the chat.
Yep.
And although you're the physics guy, so it's not strictly for you, I'll ask it anyway because I've asked it a couple of times now. Would it be possible to add animated objects outside the circuit to make it more alive? So, for example, animated spectators, moving 3D objects, trees, that kind of thing.
I think anything is possible.
Okay.
If it's easy, I don't know, probably not, or most importantly, I don't think we care right now for that.
Sure. Is that like a decision just to make sure that you can get the best performance and frame rate possible?
At the start, yes, absolutely. And it's not, obviously people, for example, want day-night simulation and stuff like that.
Don't go there. Don't go there, man.
I will go there. I will go there. Why we didn't do it? Because at the start of the project of the Assetto Corsa, which was like, 5.5 years ago, we had to choose what kind of engine to create. And we focused to create an engine that was very efficient, with high frame rate for normal conditions. For two reasons. First, because we wanted the AI, to have the actual physics of the player, which is quite CPU consuming.
Yes.
And then because back in the day we wanted to have more performance for the PCs, for even the low-end PCs of that era. As a matter of fact, nowadays that PCs are very strong, we get Assetto Corsa going easily over 100 frames per second with VR, for example, which is like rendering 2 screens, or with triple screens with very high resolutions. Again, no issue about it. Now, I'm not an expert in terms of graphical engines, but I'm pretty sure that with an engine that has to do, multiple light sources and animations and stuff like that, it wouldn't be that easy, or at least we're gonna we would have less frame rate and more issues.
Okay, back onto the cars again. What have we got left to drive? Is it time for another swap over?
I don't know if you want to just for a lap more to explain the ALA system.
Oh, well remembered. Yep, let's do that, and then let's make a change.
Right. So, Huracan Performante from Lamborghini has a brand new system for active aerodynamics. They call it ALA, which in Italian means wing. And well, the end result is that it's like having a wing that moves, and moves depending on whatever inputs it gets from the telemetry of the car, as happens in other cars like Porsches or Ferrari or the Pagani Huayra, for example, with all 4 wings. But the problem with those wings is that they have to have either very strong electric motors to to work, or very strong hydraulics. And this stuff is a little bit slow to operate. So you get an input, and then you have a response which is a little bit late, maybe occasionally. So this obviously makes the handling of the car not exactly as you would wish. It's a passive system.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that they wait a lot and add complexity, which also add problems with reliability. So what the Lamborghini engineers thought about this is that instead of moving the whole wing, they have some air ducts, and the air ducts inside them have valves, small valves, that they open and close. And doing so, they change the direction of the wind and the air as it hits the actual rear wing and a little bit of the front splitter. Doing so, they modify the efficiency of the rear wing. They can stall the rear wing so it has less downforce and less drag, or they can give it more wing over it. Sorry, more wind, more air over it, so it has more downforce, but obviously more drag also.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. It's the end result. But the fact is that those little valves are much faster to operate. You have practically zero lag to operate them. They are much lighter, so the car weighs less. And obviously they are also more reliable because they are just simple electric motors that just turn around and open and close those valves. So that's the whole system, and obviously it is simulated inside the Assetto Corsa.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Oh, well.
Right. That must have been quite difficult to explain that while driving this thing in close company.
I'm sure people will be really appalled by my driving skills, but yeah, that's it, guys, for tonight.
At least your pedals work, man. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if anyone's like living near me and can drop me a set of pedals off for tomorrow, that'd be awesome. Right. Next question while you're making your way back to the pitch to swap over. This one's from Mantasig, one of our more prominent modders at Race Department. This is a good question, actually. I like this. How important are external factors to test and properly appreciate physics? That's from a user's point of view. Things such as field of view, force feedback settings, and also, we spoke about this, Aris, the other day, attitude. Really getting down with the car and understanding it.
Yes. Well, yes. In fact, this is a very interesting question. I would say that all those factors are important, but not terminally important. The most important thing, instead, is choosing one configuration and sticking with it, not continuously changing your force feedback settings, or your FOV, or your attitude, or whatever. Because here is what happens while I'm getting out from the server to choose another car. Do you guys have any? So what do we have?
We've already got a couple left. We've got the
Giulia Quadrifoglio. I know what people know want. Great. All right. So I was saying, simulators, they are close to real life, but they are not real life. We can make them as perfect as we can. Let's imagine a future where the physics are perfect, right? But in the end, you get the whole real world, and you squeeze it in scale in front of a monitor. You can put 3 screens, but it's still squeezed, or you can put a VR, but it's still not reality, right? So, and most importantly, you don't have any G-forces. Even with motion platforms, you don't have any G-forces. So, what that means? It means that in any case, your brain has to are customized for the lack of G-forces, for the different visual inputs, for the different audio inputs, and even the different feedback inputs from the steering wheel, because yes, they are close, but they are not the same. Lack of vibrations and everything similar. Which means that your brain has to be customized and has to create lots of muscle memory to start to understand what's going on, right?
Yeah, yeah.
If you keep changing things, searching for whatever ideal setting you think that other drivers, other sim racers using, because they are maybe faster than you, or maybe they have better control than you, what you do really is that uh, you don't let your brain to get used to it. You keep changing inputs for your brain, and in the end, you don't create any muscle memory, and your brain is not used to it. So it will get worse and worse, constantly worsening the actual situation.
And do you
So
find as well that jumping into a car with very little practice, because of the level of detail that you've got, correlation between real and virtual, jumping in, doing 10-15 laps can give you a good experience, you can enjoy it, but the real strength of the simulation is when you've really got under the skin of the car, you've understood every bit of its fine detail, and you're pushing for that final tenth, that final extra couple of kilometres an hour into a corner, or getting on the throttle that little bit earlier because you've understood the special nuances of each little car that maybe aren't apparent when driving at 97-98% speed, or 98% of the limit of the vehicle.
well, this is another subject that sometimes hurts me a little bit, because I know you guys out there, I know what you're doing. We release a DLC, don't hide, I know what you're doing. We release a DLC, you get jumping from one car to the other all the time, do a couple of laps, oh yeah, let me try the other one. Oh yeah, let me try the other one. Then you come to the forums, oh, this is understeer, this is oversteer, this is I can control. So you need to give them more time. I mean, with so many cars, sometimes I would expect, forums to be full of people discussing the subtleties and the handling and how the cars change character depending on what the tires are doing and so on. And instead, after the first enthusiastic post, we go back talking about my sim is better than yours, you pushed me out on that race, people on the servers do not use the cars that I like, and stuff like that. I think,
Yes.
it is a little bit of criticism, and I'm sorry to sound like that, but I think in the forums, sim racers talk a little bit too much about, how to say, everything else than the actual cars and tracks.
Yeah, I think that's almost a reflection of society today, that we want everything now, we want quick thrills, and really, especially when you've got, like you say, 150 plus cars, it's very rare and very difficult to find, short of people outside of a league practicing, very rare and very difficult to find people have enough time to do 100, 200, 300 laps of a track with a car and get that level of detail. And I agree, I think that's a bit of a shame, because really that's when you're on the final tenth of performance, that's when the real differences start to stand out, and the level of detail and work and mathematics has gone into the sim really start to show its true flavours.
Yeah.
Okay, back to still
Back
Mantasig.
to the Julia.
Yes, back to the Julia. Manufacturer collaboration with this one. How's that gone?
Yes.
Are you satisfied with the end result? She's a beautiful looking car.
Yeah. I had also the luck to drive the car, and it is a strange car. If you compare it to the direct competitor, which is the M4 that Gergo is driving right now in front of me, it has better turn-in, but you only feel it if you jump from this car to the other, because otherwise you might think that the Giulia is a little bit heavy, right?
That's what I thought, yeah.
Yes, it seems a little bit heavy, but in reality it is so stable and it doesn't really get upset that it gives you the impression that sometimes it understeer or sometimes it is, as I said, heavy. And you can feel this especially when you jump from the M4 to the Giulia. When you jump, I mean, the first time I get back to the M4, I was like, what happened to the car? Maybe I have some typo in the physics and something was terrible, because it has much more understeer and much more snap oversteer, much easier oversteer when you go on the accelerator. The Giulia, on the other hand, has better turn-in and it has much more traction on the outside of the turn. So much traction that sometimes you think that it doesn't have enough power, even though it's much more powerful than the M4. But the thing that happens with this car is it has a pretty advanced real active differential, and I try to simulate this as good as possible. But it can get tricky. You think that it has plenty of traction. At some point, it just slides the rear end and bites you. When it starts sliding, it is a little bit nervous. It's not like the old M3 E92, for example, that you could drift it easily. You can drift it, but you have to be a little more careful with what you're doing with the. You see how the M4 in front of me went sideways while I was just full throttle and full traction.
So what's this come with as standard then? Have we got traction control and ABS as the factory setting on this one?
Yes, as usual. Right now we are without, at least I'm without traction control. It also has electronic brake bias, which means that depending on what you're doing with your steering wheel and the loads on the suspension and so on, it will change the braking bias back and forth to create stability or make the braking zone shorter. This is actually one of the reasons that I always advise the sim racers users to not disable the ABS, especially on street cars, because some people disable the ABS on everything.
Yeah.
But especially on street cars, it doesn't really make sense, because it's not only that can make the car harder to deal with, because this is something that maybe someone wants to, experience, but it changes the actual character of the car, because the car is made in a way to take advantage of the electronic brake bias and the ABS and all that stuff. You can disable traction control, that's no problem, but ABS on street cars, I advise to keep it.
She looks beautiful out on circuit anyway. I'm just watching the stream now, wishing my pedals worked. Never mind, I'm enjoying watching other people have fun, so it's nice. Right, if we could do a couple more laps of this, and then I only think we've got the 33 left, is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, my personal favourite. I'm a bit of an historic car fan. Also, quick shout out to several people who have followed us during the stream. Thank you very much, that's awesome, much appreciated. If you haven't already decided to follow, please do, please subscribe, that would be marvellous. Right, while you're doing a few fancy laps, I'll throw another quick community question. I'm still on Mantasy because he posted quite a few, and all of them are pretty good. Bear me a second. Oh, actually no, I'm going to go for one from the comments. What equipment do you do your physics testing on, Aris? Do you prefer lower end gear or more expensive pedals and wheel sets?
Well, I often switch. I was doing lots of testing with the G29 and G27, especially when we were doing the console version of the games, as so to be, certain that the physics were identical.
Oh, cool.
Nowadays, because I broke my G29, I'm using. I was using it before, but whoops. Yeah, you see how twitchy it is if you are not paying attention.
Oh, yes.
It's not a drift machine. It's more of, a car that you can push to the limits. You have to be a little bit careful because it is a little bit on the heavy side, so you overheat the tires. Anyway, I was saying, right now I'm using a CSW Fanatec V2 with their pedals, and I'm pretty happy with it.
Oh, same as me. I'll have to copy your settings when this is finished. Thank you.
And one thing that I think some people ask me about it, I'm a fanatic user of gyroscope effect. Always on, always some dumping.
There you go, top tip, people.
I know some people do not like it because it seems that it limits the free movement of the steering wheel. But if you try some of those cars, there are not many cars that are completely free rotation of the steering wheel when you drive them at the limit. Some of them, for example, the KTM Xbo, driving it with the actual raw normal tires, it has a normal steering wheel, no issues. And if you put the actual semi-slicks on it and maybe do a more lower to the ground setup, because it is a car that benefits a lot from ground effect. So the lower you go, the better it is. The steering wheel becomes so damped in terms of damping, and I'm talking about the actual real car, that most of the sim racers wouldn't believe it. You really have to turn it, straighten it around yourself. Otherwise, it will almost remain turned towards the turn, and you will end up inside of the turn at the exit of the turn if you let it, counter steer alone. So yeah, for me it's gyroscopic effect on, and I think about 0.2 damping effect on the assettocorsa.ini file in the system folder.
Cool, right, I see now that you're in the mouth-watering 33. My suggestion to David behind the cams and to us is we just shut up and watch you drive for a lap on board and listen to the beauty of this car.
Alright, yeah.
So no pressure, Aris, there's a lot of people watching. Do a good lap.
Let's take it easy then.
Maximum
Actually,
attack.
Okay, I'll take it easy like this, and then we'll go directly into the pits and do something else. Obviously, H pattern and heel and toe. In my situation, heel to heel, because no, actually toe to toe, because I can't heel.
Okay, that's the longest I can possibly go without talking. But that were awesome.
Yes, it's good.
It's a beautiful car. I mean,
it is a beautiful car.
Were this a particular moment of pleasure for you to bring this in a game and secure this license for racing?
It is really one of my favorite cars in terms of design and sheer beauty. And one of the most proud moments of my professional life, because just the other day ago, when we officially released a couple of screenshots of the car in my personal Facebook account, I got Giovanna Scaglione that posted that his father would be proud that his car is inside the simulator for the new generations to look, because Caglione was the actual designer of this car. Is one of the most important designers of that era, if not the most important.
Aris, that is an incredible accolade. Nice one, man.
Yeah,
well done, nice.
That was really something. Let me do something for our friends here. As you saw, the rev limit is around 9,000 RPM, and the car has 230, 235 horsepower, but the engine could get a little bit more RPMs and release about 250 horsepower. So this is what we've done right now. Operate the rev limiter. Listen to that, listen to that.
Yeah,
look at this, such a fantastic job with the sounds of this car. It's a strange car to drive. Actually, yes, we have lots of things to talk about it. First thing is that the engine is a very small 2.4 liters V8, so lots of power at the top end, no torque at the bottom end. Listen to that.
Yeah, she's a beaut.
Let's see if I can arrive close to the limiter here. No, not yet. Whoa.
See, I'm actually finding this incredibly difficult to concentrate. I'm just staring at the screen with a stupid smile on my face.
So, I was saying, very particular engine, small displacement, 8 cylinders, and if you push it, obviously you're gonna have engine damage, but it's worth it. 10,000 RPM engine rev limiter. The problem is that, whoa, lots of oversteer in turn-in, coasting, lots of engine braking. The problem is that the car has very big rear tires, very fat, and this means that lacking also the torque and having lots of inertia on the rear wheels and tires, it's very difficult to spin the tires. So at the exit of the turn, it's not like that you can, you know, whoops, power drift the car. Whoa, power drift the car. But as you can see at the turn-in, if you don't downshift properly and you let the car coast way too much, the engine brake will bite you back, and you're gonna have quite some turn-in oversteer. The other problem is that this car has a very particular chassis, which has an H-shaped structure. The fuel tanks are at the side of the driver, left and right, and because of this strange chassis, the initial racing car and this street homologated model, they had plenty of, whoops, lost the braking point. They had plenty of chassis flex at the front of the suspension. And this means that the actual test drivers of the real car, they even went ahead to say that the front of the car, while the rear of the car was pretty solid and easily manageable, the front of the car was very strange and downright scary at some situations, because the front would follow a lot bumps, longitudinal bumps of the road. Under braking, it will choose a line and will go into that line alone and stuff like that. So obviously we don't have chassis flex in Assetto Corsa for reasons that I can explain if you guys want to, but maybe it will be I'm
Might be
talking
here
far,
a long
far
time.
too much.
Yeah.
But what we try to do is to recreate some bump steer, actually quite a bit of bump steer on the front suspension, which recreates a little bit of the effects of the chassis flex at the front. What bump steer means is that when the suspension goes up and down, it also changes the toe, so actually where the wheels are pointing, left or right. So the wheels are steering all alone when the suspension goes up and down. Actually, I had this effect here at the braking point, braking zone of the corkscrew. I will try to recreate it on the next lap. So what happens is that you might think that you are doing a proper line and braking point with this car, but you might find that you cannot be as precise as you want to be with this car. Sometimes you will end a little bit wider than where you want it to be. Sometimes you will end a little bit inside the turn than where you want it to be, all because the front end is not as precise as the rear end.
So, talking about the actual creation of the car itself.
Yes.
Did you find this quite a challenging project? 'Cause obviously it's a very rare car, it's a very old car. Is there a lot of information held by the manufacturer in order that they'll spare for you, or was it a case like trying to rustle up?
Well, we were a little bit lucky with this car because although it is a rare gem, there are some good books that they have the story. Problem is almost as usual with vintage cars that you buy a book that costs, I don't know, 40, 50, 100 euros depending on the book, and it's like 200 or 300 pages or 500 pages, and you read and read and read, and in the end the useful data. By the way, look here. You see how the car goes wherever it likes, because I got the bump just on the right side, and the right suspension moved the car somewhere else than where I wanted to be. So I was saying, you get those big books, and you read all the book, and in the end, the useful stuff for you is concentrated in 10, 20 pages. That's it.
Yeah.
But it is anyway a great thing because, at least for me, reading and getting to know the history of such cars, it's really something very, very cool.
And this one obviously does have quite a long and varied history. Just a quick question, because I'm conscious that we've been live nearly 2 hours now, so I'm sure you're getting tired. Do you have plans to bring the race variant of this to AC at any stage, in our racing version of this?
Oh, right now,
because you know me, I like my race cars.
So. Yeah, right now I don't think so. But who knows? Honestly, I don't know. But for now, that's the one. And I think, if I remember well, we were quite, it was hard to decide which one, because we really liked the 33 T2, which was the long tail one. But it was sometimes, you have to choose also the version that you have more data about it, or that the manufacturer thinks it's better for him too. So you have to compromise. The whole thing is always a compromise.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, Aris, I think I'm gonna wind this up now, sir. Massive thanks. It's been a pleasure as always.
It's really been a pleasure for us too, really.
I hope everybody watching's enjoyed it. Feel free to come to RD and leave a comment and say thank you to Aris. Ask any follow-on questions that we can maybe field at another time. Thank you massively to everybody who subscribed.
Thank you, Race Department. Thank you all the guys that were here join us to hear about me rambling along and talking way too much. What can I say? 2 more days and all of this will be yours to drive and experience.
Yep, absolutely. And trust me, from my experience, when I've got 3 metal things at my feet that actually do what they're supposed to do, it's incredible fun. A little bit sort of worshipy, but on behalf of everybody, Aris, thank you for everything you do. AC's awesome. This is an incredible pack. It's free, which is also very generous, so thank you. Thanks everybody. Those of you who've missed some of this or all of it, we'll be putting it on YouTube a little bit later on, so come back probably tomorrow to catch that. Really like, subscribe, they please me no end, so subscribe if you like, that would be appreciated. And we'll catch you all next time. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Aris and team. Take care. Good night.
Thank you, everybody. Subscribe.